you seem like a pretty seasoned crowd. And I'm going to talk about grand strategy. I'm talking about the big daddy-o strategy of the nation. I'm going to talk about sustainability. So shove your any notions of sustainability only being for greenies, because I'm here to tell you if a Marine can say sustainability and the Pope can say it, you can say it too. It's going to be okay. So stand by for the ride. But before we talk about grand strategy, I talk about what is this nation going to be about. I mean, we've got to fundamentally come to grips with what is the cause of the United States. Now, this is a great, one of my most favorite quotes of all time. 1776, Thomas Paine cranks out this little pamphlet called Common Sense. I think it's probably time to have Common Sense Part 2. Maybe somebody ought to do that. You guys, all right? But this is right on the very first page. The cause of America is in the great many, the cause of all mankind. I just love that first quote. I do. Right? And I spent 28 years in uniform. And I'm never going to apologize for America, but I'm not going to make any excuses either. What is our cause today? If anybody can answer the question, raise it. Put your paw in the air and let me know. Because I've been trying to figure it out. I've been doing headbutting in the name of national policy for quite some time. Sure, it feels good sometimes, but sometimes it feels good to stop pounding the head against the wall and maybe figure out a different direction. Right now in the United States, the way we approach the world, we're actually approaching as if we should need to preserve the status quo, that we should be the agents of status quo. If we can keep a lid on everything, control everything, everything's going to be okay. Well, I'm here to tell you, first of all, status quo for a lot of people wasn't all that great in the 20th century. The second thing is that control, status quo, isn't a possibility. And the only thing that subscribes to the logic of status quo is a monoculture, and monocultures wither and die. That is not the place we got to be. We're better than that as a nation. We're better than that, and we've got to be better than that, because we have to come to grips with what the cause of America is. And the only discipline, the only art, the only mechanism that allows us to talk about a cause of our nation is grand strategy. And, oh, by the way, in 2009, July 2009, I was blissfully happy doing strategy for special operations. And for whatever reason, I got plucked from what we called HappyCom down in Tampa, Florida. And I got pulled up to work at the Pentagon for Admiral Mullen, Admiral Mike Mullen. First of all, so this was July of 2009. And if you're ever wondering who the people are behind the big curtain up there, my only experience in Washington was my 2 years from 2009 to 2011 working for Admiral Mullen. So I can't talk to everybody in Washington, D.C., but I can talk to that guy. And he just oozed integrity. Every day he got up to do the right thing. That's who I got to work with. It was an honor and it was a privilege. Unfortunately, he gave me some really crappy tasking that I really didn't want to have, and it was to figure out the next grand strategy for the United States. He asked me, a Marine colonel and a Navy captain, and Wayne Porter, who's one of my dearest friends now. Yes, Marines and Navy guys can live together too, so it was okay. All right? We didn't kill each other, at least. Well, we weren't successful in killing each other. But Admiral Mullen sat us down, recognizing that on any given trend line, we looked across the board of the United States, where we're talking about our fiscal condition, where we're talking about our economic condition, we're talking about our political condition, whether we're talking about our environmental condition or our social condition, we were not trending in a positive way. So he said, Mykleby, Porter, figure it out. Figure out a different direction for the country. Write a grand strategy, give it to me, and let me see what that would look like. All right? So when Wayne and I got back to our little office and we looked at each other, we said, what the hell are we going to do with that? And the first thing we decided to do was not do what we were told. And we weren't going to write a new grand strategy. Because America doesn't need another stinking strategy rattling out of Washington, D.C. We've got plenty of strategies, trust me. Last time I stopped counting at 200, but we've got plenty of strategies. And guess what? All those strategies predominantly are focused on threat and risk. They're focused on what are all the crap that we got to keep away from our shores. How we're going to protect every American. Well, I'm here to tell you, there isn't enough bubble wrap in all the world to wrap around every American's head. All right? You can't protect every American. Get over it. Toughen up. We're going to get hit again. And I don't care if it's Al-Qaeda, I don't care if it's ISIS, I don't care if it's an earthquake, I don't care if it's a hurricane. I don't care. We're going to get hit again. We just got to toughen up. It seems to me that in the 21st century, this interdependent, interconnected, open system type of world that we live in the 21st century, maybe, just maybe, we ought to fall back to what we do best and be the land of opportunity. Because we're not the land of stinking threat and risk. We're the land of opportunity, after all. So why wouldn't we have a strategy based on opportunity? And that's what Wayne and I decided to do. And then we ended up writing this document. I got to the Pentagon in July of 2009. we wrote this document called the National Strategic Narrative by August of '09. I thought I was going to get to go home, but I wasn't. I was going to spend 2 more years peddling this stuff around the country. And interestingly enough, in this document, like I said, we focused on could America begin to focus on opportunity and an opportunity-based strategy for the future. And when we do that, in order to do that, we would have to shed our 20th century perspective that is focused on leveraging force and power to control global dynamics. It doesn't work anymore. It worked in containment, it worked great. Soviet Union collapsed, goody gumdrops. Soviet Union's not around anymore. No matter how hard we try to find another Soviet Union to focus on. China comes to mind, Iran comes to mind, Russia comes to mind. That's not the world we live in. What Wade and I said is we really want to look out for our enduring national interests of prosperity and security, which is what we define as our big interests. We really have to start thinking in open system terms. And when you think in open system terms, you have to think in ecological terms. In fact, we started calling the world a strategic ecology. And we ended up saying that if we to replace containment, this concept of containment that we are still cognitively and organizationally aligned to, trying to keep the 20th century alive and well in the 21st century. If we're going to shed that, what could replace that concept of containment as our grand strategic logic? And we said the big S word. I didn't know it was such an emotional word, but we said sustainability. I mean, I would say it was like dropping the F-bomb in church when we said it, because all of a sudden people come, a Marine and a sailor were saying it, and it was coming out of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff office. You can't do that, right? Well, we did. And that has a big, big different logic to it. And in fact, when we start talking about prosperity and security, why would sustainability map to being a grand strategic concept? It falls into the scientific definition of sustainability. An organism's ability to remain diverse and productive over time. Diversity means depth. It means redundancy. It means resilience. In my Marine mind, that means we got to be able to take a gut punch and come back swinging. That's what we got to toughen up. Quit worrying about all the crap we got to keep away from our shores and start toughening up. Right? The second part of that, though, definition, an organism's ability to be productive over time, we're talking about growth. But we fundamentally, as a nation, need to come to grips with the fact that, guess what? We live in a resource-constrained environment. The only thing that's for free coming in this world is sunlight. We're not even using that very well, are we? Right now, the human species, it takes 1.5 planets of resources to support us today. In the future, it's going to be 4.5 planets. Now, I'm a nose-picking Marine, so I'm not that smart. You guys are a lot smarter than me. You go to this university. I'm just happen to work here, right? But that math doesn't work. I know you know that too, right? So what we're talking about is grand strategy. It maps directly to our national enduring interest of prosperity and security. But just as importantly, it maps directly to a quintessentially unique American way of doing grand strategy. Where we stand on our economy, we let our economy do the heavy lifting, we align our governing institutions, our foreign policy to take on the big challenge of the age. Whatever that is. World War II, we were the arsenal of democracy. We fundamentally re-wickered our economy, pointed it toward a wartime footing, led by the private sector, by the way, in 1940. Bill Newton, the president of General Motors, coming out of Detroit to lead the charge. But we fundamentally aligned our economy, pointed towards a wartime footing, and meanwhile built up a 440-man military up into a 20 million man juggernaut and fought a two-front global war, all the while arming and equipping our allies. It was all based on our economy. Containment, same thing. When we came up with this concept of containment, yeah, we're going to contain the Soviets with military power, but it was a contest of political and economic systems. Right? Nobody knew that better than General Eisenhower. He stood on our economy, and we outlasted the Soviet Union at work. Well, today, we don't have this kind of focus, mostly because we're looking for the bad mamma jamma that's running around the world. Is it Iran? Is it China? Who's going to be the big enemy that we can focus on? Well, I'm here to tell you, a great power doesn't have to have an enemy to have a grand strategy. You just have to have the interest, and you just have to have a grand strategic framework. But we do have this huge challenge that we need to take on. And I'm here to tell you, it's global unsustainability. And I know that's not a word, but again, you're dealing with the Marines to deal with it, okay? Global unsustainability. And it falls, it's like the wicked problem of our time. There's 4 components to it. Number one, we've got an issue of economic inclusion. Everyone gets a big sweaty lip over 9 billion people coming in, by the middle of the century. That's how many people are going to be stumbling around the world. But the real number that I'll scare you is the 3 billion people we got to fold into the global middle class. And when they arrive, their resource consumption goes up 300%. That's how you go from 1.5 planets to 4.5 planets by the middle of the century. It's happening right now. 2 weeks ago, China just exceeded the number of middle class of the United States. First time in history. Well, our history, the United States. Interesting, it's happening right now. Second thing that leads to, with this growing global middle class, second big pillar of this big challenge is ecosystem depletion. We've already exceeded 4 out of the 9 planetary boundaries. Talking about deforestation, carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus cycles, right? And we're rapidly eroding our soils and waterways as well. It's happening. Got to come to grips with it. Which leads us to the third big problem of this global unsustainability thing, is we're still waiting for an old system, economic system, to find our way out. But the fact of the matter is that 2008, where the big collapse was just as big of a deleveraging moment as 1929. We're in the middle of a contained depression. This isn't a recession. We're in a contained depression. We're using monetary and fiscal policy to prop up stock prices, hoping that something magical happens. Well, I'm here to tell you there's no magic elf on a moonbeam that's going to come down and freaking fix it. All right? We've got to fundamentally redesign our global economy. And the problem is, it's not a big deal. I mean, this isn't freaking socialism. It's not communism. Holy shit, we did it at the end of World War II. We have done this at cyclic times in our history when we needed to. And right now we're sitting on our thumbs waiting for something magical to happen. Well, the invisible hand, Adam Smith, I don't see him standing outside. It's up to us, okay? Which leads us to the fourth big pillar of this challenge, is that we're in a big resilience deficit. Our systems are hyper-efficient and have just goody gumdrops. But guess what? They're also very, very corrosive. And the more we make them more efficient, they just become more efficiently corrosive. Our resilience deficit is so tight that just, remember the Fukushima Daiichi issue? You know, tsunami comes in, nuclear meltdown, you know, that's bad enough. Well, just a little bit to the north of Ground Zero, there was a small auto parts making company. Made a $3 gasket for cars. Right? 30 days later, they can't make quota, supply lines dry up. Guess what happens in the United States? Now, you can't show causation, but there's sure as hell strong correlation. Here in the United States, our 4 major automakers could not make their quotas, and our national unemployment jumped from 8.9 to 9.1%. I'm here to tell you, a $3 gasket, if that could put a wrinkle in our system, what do you think something bigger is going to do? Right? We've got a big resilience deficit, and that frames out what global unsustainability is today. Right? Economic inclusion, ecosystem depletion. We're in a contained depression, and we're suffering from a resilience deficit. It's time to design a new. And the cool part is that because we're freaking Americans, we are the land of opportunity. If we would just strap on our sustainability goggles and get out of our own stinking way, we'd be able to see huge market forces that can propel a new economy going forward. That not only shift the direction of this nation, but also shift the direction of the global economy. The trajectory that this world is on right now. Only America has the amount of ass in the, oh, sorry, I swore again. Pardon my friend. Only America has a big enough economic butt to move the economy in a different direction. 25% of the global economy. And these 3 big market forces that sustainability points us to are as follows. Walkable communities. You know, mixed use, mixed income, transit-oriented, smart growth, walkable communities. Kind of like University Circle, you know? The kind of stuff they're doing there. Right? Now, why is that? It's all based on demographics. Right now, according to the National Association of Realtors, 60% of Americans don't like where they live. 60%. And more specifically, 60% of Americans seek the attributes of smart growth in their next housing purchase. Yet only 2% of new housing startups map to that demand. I mean, 2% supply, 60% demand. Somebody do the math for me. What is that? 60 minus 2. Are you kidding me? You guys go to CASE. Oh, okay, I'll do the math for you. 58%. That's a big-ass opportunity right there, right? Walkable communities. And you know what's magical about this is it's just about demographic convergence. We are sitting on a historic demographic convergence we haven't seen in a long time. Baby boomers are downsizing, you know? They don't want to be stuck out in the suburbs anymore. You know, they get stuck up in the suburbs, kids take away the keys, you know, somebody sticks you in a home, you don't even know where you are, and somebody's shoveling applesauce in your face. That's no way to live. The American Association for Retired Persons are saying aging in place is what baby boomers want. That's what they need. That's delivered by smart growth housing. Oh, by the way, millennials, are you guys millennials, or is there some new term for you guys? What the hell are you? Are you a millennial? What?
We're still millennials.
Are you millennials? Shit hot. Okay, I'll talk about millennials. But millennials don't want to be out in the suburbs either. Right? Now, I don't know what the hell you guys watch on TV. I watch Brady Bunch, so living in suburban Minneapolis made sense to me. I don't know, what did you guys watch? Friends or something? I don't know, whatever the hell you guys watch. You want to have that living environment, that's hip, it's happening, that's where you want to raise your families in, right? That's where that 60% comes from. And just to put it in real terms, that's 3 times the level of demand for a specific type of housing, 3 times the level of demand than what we saw post-World War II with the returning GIs. 3 times. And that fueled our economy through the late 70s through early 80s. This is truly historic. It's huge. It's massive. Second thing, just to get faster and funnier, because I know somebody's you're gonna start waving fingers at me pretty soon, aren't you? How much time do I got?
4 minutes.
4 minutes? Jeez, you got a fast watch. Regenerative agriculture. According to the OECD, we've got to increase global food production by 60% by the middle of the century, and 100% of that has to be regenerative because we've exceeded ecosystem limitations. And the cool thing is, bring it down to Main Street USA, or Main Field USA, regenerative agriculture techniques, whether it's organic, whether it's aquaponic, whatever, name your type of technology, 3 times more profitable per acre, 3 times. That's coming off of the Rodale Institute 30-year farm trial study. Oh, by the way, at the same time, reducing carbon intensity, sequestering carbon in the soil, 40% less energy, 45% less emissions. And, oh, by the way, water, which is kind of important. And from a national security perspective, the fact that Iowa has lost 50% of its topsoil, we better get on with this thing pretty quick. It takes about 500 or 1,000 years to crank out 1 inch of soil. The last thing, big opportunity, productivity revolution. But we fundamentally have the technology today, renewable energy, advanced materials, advanced manufacturing. The kind of crap that goes on at Case Western right now, across the Rust Belt, can fundamentally revitalize this economy, manufacturing based, to deliver the goods and services to that growing middle class at radically reduced resource intensity. And just to tell you, it's just not big wonky crap where you just do big arm waves and say, yeah, it's just going to happen. I'm here to tell you that stuff translates right down to Main Street USA. Right now, that bottom line chart is just for any sector of our economy. For every bucket that sector output, what ancillary economic benefit you get for it. Well, right now, our economy is pointed at the right end of this thinking spectrum. You know, with retail services to financial services, that's only 55 cents to 63 cents. That's crap, right? But if we capture those big bins of demand and we focus on those, guess where we point our economy? Manufacturing, $1.35 for every buck you get out of it. Agriculture, $1.20. Construction and transportation. That's where the economy is made, but you got to design to that end, and that's what we're doing right here at CASE at the Strategic Innovation Lab at Weatherhead. We're bringing in 100 CEOs, top-tier CEOs, to create an alternative growth scenario. Call it a new investment hypothesis for the United States. To fundamentally and systemically interconnect all of these different sectors around those bins of demand to figure out a new path. This is where you get to Ford moving from being a car and a truck making company. 2 minutes? Your watch slowed down, thanks. Right? Ford's moving from being a car and truck making company to becoming a mobility services company, right? The value's in the service, not in the gear. Same thing with Shell Oil Company, moving from being a hydrocarbon energy company to becoming a materials company. Taking that beautiful hydrocarbon molecule and start cranking out the materials that we need to replace concrete, lumber, steel. Again, stuff that we're doing right here at CASE. Just started this about a month ago. We're figuring it out. And, oh, by the way, it can go down to Main Street USA as well. So it's not just all the big daddios up here. It's all of us little munchkins down here. Right? And I'm a big believer. If you want a new idea, reading old books, so read this guy's book. Anybody know that guy? Yeah. Sir Ebenezer Howard. You got to love somebody that, first of all, he's got a Sir at the beginning of his name, and then his name's Ebenezer. It's pretty cool. Sir Ebenezer Howard, 1902, cranked out this book called Garden Cities. And it's a cool design. It's a systemic, integrated design for community. You got food, water, energy, built environment, transportation, all integrated, right? Really cool stuff. And I just wanted to point out, you can't see it, but he's talking about a group of slumless, smokeless cities, but it's really cool. It's an inclusive model. He's got a room for a home for inebriates. He's also got an insane asylum up there. And I love that part because now you know where you're going to recruit your Marines because it's all about national security too, right? That's where you go. But what we're calling this thing is full spectrum sustainability. We can dust that idea off and put it right on Main Street, where you fundamentally integrate those functional sectors. Now, when I was talking about this is where our smart power at home, or our smart growth at home becomes our smart power abroad, because these challenges that we face today are the same challenges that China faces. They got to put 292 million people in the urban environment in the next 20 years. How the hell do you do that? Well, you don't do it by haphazard, you do it by design. That's what we're talking about. Now, when I was talking about this stuff in the Pentagon, they used to call me, you're utopian. My time is up. I got to get this one last point out. It's real important. Is that okay? It takes you guys a while to translate. This is really cool. Now, that's being called utopian, that just really pissed me off, because you can't call Marines utopian. It's like, again, I think it's a law, right? But then I actually went and looked up the word. You know, and said, hey, well, holy cow, that's pretty good. It's pretty cool. Because there's two ways you can spell utopia, right? In Greek. Topos is place. Well, there's an EU topos and there's an OU topos. But guess what? The EU topos means no place. The OU topos means no place. The EU topos means good place. Which one you want? I mean, it's a freaking fundamental decision. I guess I'm going to go for the good place. So yeah, if I'm utopian, color me guilty, because I'm willing to bet that these cats are a little bit utopian when they gapped out this document, right? And I just want to point out that the first words are "we the people of the United States." It doesn't say "waiting on frickin' Washington, D.C." It says "we the people of the United States in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, but most importantly, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Posterity! It's not about us here and now, it's more about you guys. I mean, we already asked it up pretty good. You know, I'm sorry, you guys are going to have to fix it, and this is the way to do it, right? It's our burden, it's our challenge. And if we think that the greatest generations in our past will wake up and smell the coffee, if our best is in our past, well, let's fold up our tents right now. I think we've got a lot more best to discover and deliver, right? And in this cause of sustainability, I think in a complete measure, we'll again find a cause of all mankind. So thank you for your time. I'm sorry.